welcome to Best Laid Plans. This is your host, Sarah Hart-Unger, and this is a podcast where we talk all things planning and planning adjacent. Today, I have a fun two-part episode for you. The second half of the episode is a conversation between myself and September Garrity, who was a member of Best Laid Plans at Home and a lover of all things planning and planning adjacent. And she is going to talk about how some small steps in her planning have gone to really revolutionize her social life. And when she described this to me, it really resonated. And I think you will really enjoy her take on how planning has changed things for her. Before we get to that, though, I want to welcome any new listeners. I was on Cal Newport's podcast a couple of weeks ago, which was an honor. I love his work, and he's definitely been one of the many inspirations that has helped me craft the methods that I teach. And we talked all things analog planning. I know I was on his YouTube, and that episode got lots of views. So I have acquired some new readers and listeners. So if that is you, hello. There is tons of planning content to be found here, both analog and otherwise. And I thought it would be fun to answer a listener question that I received from that kind of new audience, because I think this does pertain to others as well. So Nate wrote in and said, I'm working through the book and I really like it. Yay, thank you, Nate. But I find myself torn between going page by page versus trying to implement some things that will bring some sanity to life and planning. Like, should I focus on airtight task management before to get into some of the yearly planning stuff? Do you have any suggestions on where to begin? I guess I'm hoping for a master this concept, focus on this thing, and you can work outwards, backwards from there. Yes, Nate, I think this is such a valid point, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this question on. So I know it is so tempting to want to make a whole slew of changes all at once and just do a makeover to your life. And this could pertain to so many different areas. I know it's very common in fitness for someone to go from, oh, I don't work out at all, and I don't really pay any attention to my eating, to I'm going to track my macros and eat 100 grams of protein and work out 6 times a week. And by day 3, they're like in pain and it's very hard. And this kind of big fat regimen change doesn't necessarily have a lot of staying power. And especially if there's sort of knowledge that needs to be acquired, it's hard to make a whole bunch of changes at once. Another kind of analogy would pertain to my decluttering journey, which, by the way, it's going slowly, but it's absolutely going. And I get stuck in the same fallacy, which is that I want everything organized now. But the truth is, there are 5 members of my household. We have a lot of stuff. I don't have endless hours to spend organizing my house, nor do I want to spend all my free time organizing my house. And therefore, it's a process. I can't do all the rooms at once. My kitchen is not going to be organized at the same time as my bathroom, as my clothes, as the kids' room, as our garage, etc. I have to focus on one area and get good at different techniques, and then kind of let things flow from there as I complete my project. And organize my house is something that I do think will have kind of bleed through into other areas of life, just like perhaps having a really strong planning system going might have, or my fitness metaphor, changing all things in your life related to health and fitness. So I think just like anything else, planning just deserves respect in terms of this is a big set of changes that you might be trying to make if you are going from feeling totally scattered to having a system that really works for you. One caveat is that there might be listeners that are like, actually, I have a pretty good system and I just need a couple tweaks. And that is true. People who listen to planning podcasts, some of them are already really good at planning. So I'm not necessarily saying that everything that I talk about is going to require months of study or preparation or anything like that. But if you really are overhauling from scratch, I do think you want to give the process kind of the respect it deserves. I mean, that is why I wrote an entire book about it and not just a blog post, right? So for Nate, I do think that focusing on one area of the time makes the most sense. While it can be exciting to get my checklists in hand and be like, I'm just going to implement them all at once. Again, if you don't have a workable system to start with, that's going to be as difficult as it is to, again, change all of your diet and fitness all at once. So I would start with the basics. In the beginning of the book, I have a chapter that talks about the 3 necessary components to a functional system. And they include a really good, robust calendar, which I refer to as a master calendar, a fantastic airtight task management system, and then kind of ways of doing your planning at different horizons of time, which I call nested goals. And I would start with one of these at a time. I would start with your calendar. and not worry about really anything else until you feel like you have your calendar set up so that it truly serves you, so that you don't have to look in 100 different places to figure out what is going on for the coming weeks to months or even day by day. This might involve integrating different calendars. It might involve going more analog. It might involve going more digital. It really is going to depend on the person. And I talk about the ingredients to a functional master calendar in the book, but this is, I would say, one of the more simple pieces. It requires attention, but the idea is that you have one place you can look where you really understand all of the time-specific pieces of your life in one place. So getting that kind of set is going to take some time, and I would encourage you to feel really comfortable with that before you move on. The second piece is to work on your task management. This requires a calendar because a lot of people, I think, benefit from tying various tasks to time. So when you have your calendar going, this will help you have some logical repositories for your task management. Now, I recently did an episode that was all about airtight task management, so I'm not going to belabor all of the points that I talk about in task management here, but I will link to that episode, and I talk a lot about ways to make sure that you are processing tasks so that you will see them at a logical and appropriate time, and ways to safely ensure you're not going to miss tasks by always reviewing tasks that were not complete and moving them forward if you didn't finish them, and to make sure that you tie the task to rituals so that, for example, if you know you're going to plan every day and you're going to look at your planner, you can safely put a task there. Now, this is where it can get a little bit messy because, again, if you don't have any planning rituals set up, it can be hard to have reliable places to put your tasks. So maybe you finished kind of working on your task management system as you're starting to adopt some daily and weekly planning tactics. But I think you can get most of the system really going, and maybe just really, really careful about knowing that you're putting task places that you know you are going to look at them at the right time. So that's task management. And then finally, I would go time horizon by time horizon and work on implementing your kind of organized planning rituals. And I would actually start small. It's tempting to be like, and now I'm going to do my annual planning. And it is true that one of the steps that I recommend when you're doing each level of planning is that you kind of look one level ahead to get some inspiration. So for example, if you're doing your daily planning, you're looking at the list you made for the week to help choose tasks. If I'm telling you to go ahead and start with learning how to do your own daily planning or crafting your daily planning ritual before you've really figured out what you're going to do for the week, it's true. You're not going to have a natural list to refer to for the week, but this is a temporary problem because once you're used to daily planning, the next step is going to be learning how to plan your week and going through all the elements involved in that. And then once you're comfortable with that, you'll do the month and so on. So within a few months, you're going to have all of the lists to refer to. And honestly, these planning rituals, even though you won't be doing the nested goals exactly as designed, things will work just fine. And if you weren't doing any kind of strategic planning before, this system will build on itself. And again, within a few months, you're going to have plenty of higher level lists to look at anyway. So yeah, I do think this does need to be worked on piecemeal. And I don't think you can say, okay, I planned the day, so now let's work on the week. I think you need to get used to planning the day and figure out which elements are very important to you and figure out when it actually makes sense for you to sit down and which tools you enjoy using and just really become comfortable with it. I'm not saying you need 6 months of daily planning before you move on to weekly or something like that. But I don't know, I'd say a solid week of daily planning before you start worrying about your weekly regimen, and then a solid few weeks of weekly before you look at monthly. And again, this will build very quickly so that you will have a much more complete system going within just a few months. So I think it's worth taking the time at each level to implement things. Now, Best Laid Plans Academy is a course that I have offered in the past where I basically teach just that. The material is similar to what's in the book, but it's more taught by me and troubleshooting and questions, etc. So if you are looking for a structured kind of piece by piece guided journey for this type of planning, you may be interested in Best Laid Plans Academy 2.0, which is going to come out late this spring and early summer. So you can stay tuned for that. It's not available yet, but it is coming. So that will be fun. But honestly, all of the material and the building blocks for these tactics are in the book as well. So you can find them in that very convenient format. And of course, there are many episodes of the podcast devoted to different levels of planning. So if you didn't even want the book and you want kind of more of a piece by piece audio format, I've got lots of episodes to refer to on calendar management and task management and daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal, and yearly planning. All right, so hopefully this helps Nate and anyone else new to the podcast or anybody who's just like, I need a fresh start. My system needs a makeover, to just go slow and treat it like anything else you are learning to do. I just moved up to level 2.0 in Pilates. And you know what? I was thinking, I just started, but really I've been going to Pilates now for about 6 months. And it took that long for me to even get the skill set to do some of the things I'm doing now. And even though it felt like it went fast, I don't know, it took a while to learn a lot. So planning's just like that. Anything is really like that that's worth doing. So yeah, just give yourself the time that you deserve. All right, well, we're going to segue into this conversation with September. So she's going to introduce herself in just a second. And she and I had a little talk after our conversation where she just wants to, I pointed out that she is an empty nester right now. And there may be people listening to the conversation who are like, oh my gosh, I do not have room for this much of a social life because I am dealing with infants or toddlers, or I'm still in school, or I'm doing school after work. And she wants to note that her situation is different than it was when she had young kids. And in fact, she did not have such an elaborate social setup. So you can take her advice at any level you'd like. So maybe you're going from having absolutely no social feeling of community to maybe trying to have 2 events or outings per month. Or maybe you are in the empty nester phase like September and are looking to really have a very full social calendar and true community that is built upon planning to start with, but then, of course, just real human connection. So her story is really interesting, but I just wanted to share that little caveat or bit of perspective before you hear her conversation. All right, here is September and me talking about how her planner piece and how planning has revolutionized her social life. Today's episode is brought to you with support from Prep Dish. Did you ever just wish someone would figure out dinner for you? Prep Dish is a service that does exactly that. It takes the mental load out of planning dinner and provides efficient and super balanced meals for each week. Here's how it works. Every week, you will receive a full week's dinner plan in your email, complete with shopping list. There are now also Instacart links to make it even easier to shop if you like to shop that way, or of course, you can take the printable list to your favorite grocery store. Then all the prep work is laid out for you, and each of the weeknight dinners come together really quickly. You do the cooking, but someone else has done the thinking in a really strategic way. I love that. To try it out at no cost, go to prepdish.com/plans to activate your trial. In addition to the super fast menus that I love and use regularly, Prep Dish has gluten-free, paleo, and low-carb options, so there's truly something for everyone. Again, that's prepdish.com/plans for your first 2 weeks free. If you try it, let me know. I'd love to hear about it.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Step up your sweat with the Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. Swivel your screen 360 degrees and follow your favorite instructors on and off your tread. Track your form and reps with the movement tracking camera. Feel supported as you train on the cushioned slat belt and move to the beat with sound by Sonos. Elevate your workouts with the Cross Training Tread Plus.
Introducing Shark Facial Pro Glow, a first of its kind at-home facial. Pro-level extraction removes impurities, and dual temperature technology boosts radiance and deep puffs with both Insta-Heat and Insta-Chill technology. Treat yourself to a hydro-fueled glow in minutes. And because Shark Facial Pro Glow fits in the palm of your hand, you can get that luminous post-spa glow anywhere. Visit sharkbeauty.com to learn more.
Well, I am here today with September Garrity, and we are going to talk about some of her tactics that she has used with respect to planning that have improved her life. But before we get to that, September, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm September Garrity, and I am a mom of 4 kids who are all grown up, so an empty nester. I live with my husband, and I am the CEO of a company that does consulting in early childhood.
I love it. And you are a Best Laid Plans at Home alumnus, I guess I would say. Is that correct?
Yes. Once and future.
I love it. So I guess let's just start with an overview of your systems as they stand right now, your current version of Planner Piece. And you can leave out anything related to the social stuff that we're going to talk about next.
Okay. Well, I mean, all kind of fits into your nested planning system, I feel like. So I would say, well, it's a combination of systems. So Sunday Basket is what my husband and I use together. We actually share a Sunday Basket. And so that's from Organize 365, which I learned about through you. So we actually do our Sunday Basket on Thursday afternoons usually. So we sit down on Thursday afternoon. We go through all the mail from the week, all the whatever has come up. We figure out what errands need to get run over the weekend, who's doing what. We also kind of go through, we have I'll talk a little bit more about calendaring later, but we do have like a household management Google Calendar. And so we look at that and figure out what our chores are for the week. And it's set up on a rotating, like every week there's one kind of big thing that we're supposed to do. So although this week it was wash sheets and my husband was like, "What, again?" And I looked back and I was like, "Yes, it is time again." So we use that and figure out who's doing that one big thing. He does a lot of the kind of household chore stuff, and I do more of the management and planning kind of thing, is sort of our division of labor mostly. But there are only two of us, so that becomes really easy. So anyway, so we do Sunday Basket on Thursday afternoons, and that's like our group household figuring stuff out. And that helps because then on Fridays, I do my clean slate session, sort of weekly planning, and I already have that household stuff on the docket a little bit. And so then that's when I'm doing processing of all of the inboxes, which that was one of the things that Best Laid Plans Academy really, like, I worked through what are all of the millions of inboxes that I have. And so now on my calendar for that, I just have a list of all of those inboxes to check when I'm doing that clean slate session. And then I use Google Calendar for pretty much everything and really try to have that be the driver. And then I also have my life term, like whatever it is, the 1817 or whatever, that has a lot of notes and kind of like daily things that I'll write in it. So really my calendar is my planner. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty robust system. And yeah, I'll just give Lisa Woodruff from Organize 365 a shout out there because it sounds like you have found peace and you kind of do almost like what I talk about in the weekly family meeting. It sounds like you've incorporated that into the Sunday basket processing, which is actually like really interesting. I like that. And then Friday is the more personal stuff once you've already taken care of the household. And then is that when you do your work related planning as well? Kind of.
Yes. But it's kind of, so thinking about the Google Calendar as the place where everything lives, but I also do have very separated out. I have a lot of Google Calendars, and I actually learned about this through the Bright Method. So Kelly Nolan's program, I have a work events calendar, a personal events calendar, a work task calendar, a personal task calendar. We have our household management calendar. We also have an informational calendar that's like birthdays and my dad was out of town last week, or things that we don't really have to do anything with, but it's nice to know about. And then I also have a workout calendar and household routine. So I know that sounds like a lot, but what it means is I can see everything, but other people just have granular access. And so my assistant accesses most of those calendars, but she doesn't care about my bedtime and when I'm going to shower. But, and my husband really cares about when he has to be places and knowing if I'm traveling where I'm going to be. And so I like having that many calendars that I can turn on and off for everybody.
That's awesome. And is your task management largely captured within those 10 calendars? Are most of your tasks tied to a specific date and time? Or do you have another repository like monthly lists or weekly lists where you keep those?
Yeah. So I do the kind of seasonal goal planning in the Loic term. So I do that by hand because I do like writing, and I did like the yearly planning that we did in BLP by hand. And so I'm scribbling notes and I'm doing that. I also use the Rocketbook index cards that are erasable. And so you can use Rocketbook index cards with the friction erasable pens. And then you can actually just rinse this off with water. And so I have like, when I haven't processed everything, I'll have like a stack of these index cards. And so all of that happens like in the inbox sort of processing. So yes, I do capture tasks on the go. Or like the other day I was on a bike ride and I like just asked Siri to capture a note because I had a thought that I wanted to make sure I captured, which is why I have to do that inbox sweep every week.
So one of your inbox is probably your Rocketbook index cards. Am I right?
Yes, totally. It's on the list as it's like notebook, index cards, notes, text messages, Discord, WhatsApp, all of that.
And then you decide where everything goes, whether that's calendar or a longer term list. That makes sense.
Well, and even, again, I learned this from Kelly Nolan. A lot of stuff does go on the calendar, but sometimes I'll just throw it on the calendar for 6 months from now, knowing that when I get to it, I can figure out where it fits.
Yes, that is my equivalent of throw it on a random weekly page a couple months from now because I'm like, I just want to see this. And maybe that week will be free enough that I'll do it. Or if not, I'll decide where it goes. I love it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that is a robust system and it really incorporates elements from so many of my favorite people. So, and I'm not just talking about myself, I'm talking about Kelly and I'm talking about Lisa. That's awesome. So, the main reason I wanted to have you on, in addition to hearing all of that, is that you made a comment about how you used planning to revolutionize your social life and your contacts. And everyone got really excited. And then we decided that you needed to come on and talk about it on the show. Can you share that with everybody?
Yeah, so I think there are some phases that happen to it. So one thing is that a couple of years ago when I was doing, I can't remember if it was quarterly planning or annual planning, my husband and I sat down and we made a list of who do we want to spend more time with and how do we operationalize that. And so we started having some kind of scheduled dates with friends. So it was like, okay, well, I know that this couple we want to spend more time with. And so now my assistant just schedules lunch with those friends once a month and it shows up on my calendar and she does the coordinating of it. But we really said, oh, these are people that we want to see on a more regular basis. And who do I want to have coffee with? And having that be part of the coffee dates are mostly monthly planning. So when I sit down to plan out the month, I'll send a couple texts to people like, hey, do you want to get coffee on Saturday? And so I do coffee dates with friends that way. And so that started a couple of years ago of just trying to be more intentional about who we're spending time with and how much time we're spending with people. And then I also was working on having more fun dates with my husband. And so I would do a thing where like on Wednesdays, I would sit down and look at and see like, what is there out there that we could do this weekend or next weekend? And through that, I kind of discovered Meetup. And I mean, like, I know that sounds silly. Like, of course, Meetup is a thing and people know about it. But it was like there was a hike it was like a river tubing. And so we were like, oh, yeah, let's go tubing with this Meetup group for a date and it'll be free and it'll be fun. And so then because of that, I joined Meetup. And so then I started to see like, oh, here are all these other things that I could do. And so I joined 2 book clubs. They're very different from each other. Initially, I called them like the organized book club and the disorganized book club, but that is really not fair. So now it's like I have my book club, and then there's also what I did call the organized book club. In my head now, it's like the boomer book club because it's a lot of people who are quite a bit older than me. And I think the reason that I thought one of them was organized and one was disorganized is the organized one, the Boomer Book Club, has been around for like 10 years. They are very rigid. They have a lot of like really strict rules. It's like 1 month we read fiction and the next month we read nonfiction, and every book has to be like this long and it can't have come. There are a lot of rules. We don't discuss the books before we vote because you're supposed to have done your homework. So it's just, it has its own style. And the more chaotic book club that really has become like my book club, when I talk about book club, that's the one I mean. It's more free form. It's a very different demographic of people. And it really, now we say we're kind of a social club with a reading problem more than we're a book club. But it has become sort of the heart of my social life, truly. And so it was planning that led me there. And it's also planning that I have to really participate fully because there are so many things going on with that book club that it requires a lot of organization and thinking ahead and making decisions.
Can you give me an example? Like, do you guys do retreats together, or is there some kind of like, non-book club activity that you tend to meet up with these people to do?
Yeah, so many things. So I'm just thinking about the recent things that I've done. So we volunteered at the food bank. This weekend, they're doing, so we have a meeting tonight that's an actual book meeting, but then going to see Project Hail Mary, which is like one of the very first books that the club ever read together. So that's happening Friday. Saturday, there's an art museum field trip. We do hot girl walks. There are hikes that we do. We help each other move. There's somebody in the group right now who's having a major medical procedure today. And so we have a meal train for her and also some other stuff surrounding like supporting her with what she's going through. There's someone who just found out that she's pregnant. And so everyone's like, oh, here, we have stuff for you. And so pretty much there are arts and crafts projects. We do game nights.
It sounds like a full-on community, like it has become.
It truly is. Like we had power outages in towns near us not that long ago. And someone in the group was like, hey, I was supposed to cook dinner for my neighbor who just got a hard diagnosis, but my power's out. I'm feeling really stressed about this. And I was like, just bring your kids over to my house, cook dinner here. And so I ended up playing with her kids in the afternoon while she was making dinner for her neighbor. And then they just went and did it. Or like I needed a mixer for something fun that I was doing. And I was like, hey, does anybody have a KitchenAid mixer I can borrow? Like instead of me having to go buy one when I only need it for a short period of time. And somebody else in the group was like, yeah, we're remodeling our kitchen. I don't need it for a while. Just take it, please. So
we'll take a overview of all of that. Let's just remember that September wasn't in this book club until she was like, oh, I think I'll join Meetup to find date ideas. And then this all spiraled into something that I get it. It has absolutely shaped your life and become a true community for you. And if anybody listening to this is like, but I don't want a book club, just remember that what she's saying is absolutely not specific to a book club. This could be like, as she's speaking it, this could be a choir, it could be a religious community, it could be just like a block on your neighborhood. But it sounds like the key is A, a group of people who like each other, and B, some kind of planning engine that is keeping everything going. And I guess I have one question, which is, how do you guys tend to communicate and plan? Is there a WhatsApp group? Is this like, what kind of modalities do you use to stay in sync, since it sounds like there is so much going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. But I want to back up for just a second about the first thing that you said about like a group of people who like each other. The interesting thing about this, and I think kind of about being in community in general, is I sometimes say it's kind of like high school. It's like you get a whole bunch of people together, and when it's open to anybody, because it is on Meetup and anybody can come to any meeting, then there are going to be people who you connect with and people who you don't connect with. And so I would say there are two things that make this work. And so as you think about translating it to like a neighborhood group or a choir or any of those other settings where you might start to build more community like this, I think one thing that differentiates this from other book clubs is we have a critical mass that is like, I want to say on the Meetup, there are probably like 600 people who have joined, right? And like I'll get to the communication piece in a second, but the Discord has like 150 or 200 people. And so what that means is every meeting that we have about books has like 30 or 35 people coming to the meeting. But also if you're sick or you don't feel like it, you don't have to. And it's not like, oh, well, there's only 4 people. So if 2 people don't come, it doesn't really feel like a meeting. And when you get enough people to have that critical mass, there are going to be people that you're just like, yeah, I'd rather not sit with that person, or like, okay, if that person's running the thing, I might not go. And I think that's fine. So it's like, you have to like each other enough to put up with each other when you don't like each other. And I think that's something we just don't talk about enough. But if you think about it like high school, like you're in a class and there are some people that you really get along with and you look forward to seeing them. And there are some people that you'll hang out with outside of school. And then there are some people that you'll see them and it's fine and you'll work with them in a group if you need to, but you're not going to choose to be around them.
Makes sense. So don't be discouraged if you're doing something like that and you're not everybody's best friend from the beginning. Okay,
Exactly,
so now the communication question.
So yeah, we have a Discord, and that is a thing that the person who started the group really enforced was like, when you come to the meeting, she's like, here's the link, join the Discord right now. And I was really reluctant because I didn't have Discord and I didn't want another app. And so she took my phone and she downloaded it on my phone and added it and was like, okay, now you're on the Discord. And it's a very active Discord and it's very managed, but we have a lot of channels. So there's like an arts and crafts channel, and there's a home and gardening channel, and there's a food and drink channel, and there's a like health and fitness channel. And so you can kind of talk to people about the things that you want to. There's also like a memes channel. And so I think that that is really the glue for the group. It's where we organize all of the non-book clubby things. And it also is where you start to build that community because you're having constant conversation with people and you're getting to know them outside of just like maybe a once a month meeting or something like that. So I think the Discord is huge for that. And similarly, I'm also part of a bicycling group that's kind of a similar vibe in a way. It's a lot of women who are all interested in bicycling and we ride together. And there's a Slack for that group that operates somewhat similarly. I kind of wish they were on the same thing, but we don't get to control what those inboxes are. But yeah, so as part of my monthly and weekly planning, I go through the event calendars on both of those groups and I'll add things to my calendar just so I know what conflicts and what I'm doing when.
I think in a way it could work for them to be separate because it's like, your Discord time is only related to that group. Like, I mean, assuming you don't have other channels and stuff going, but yeah, it just becomes one of your many inboxes. Just like I have the Stack Team app that's just gymnastics or like things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I mean, I also want to mention something that I feel like I've said a few times, which is that, and this is circling way back, but you talked about friend dates and scheduling meetups happening at the monthly level. And I totally agree with that. I think that's only something I've figured out, honestly, in like the last 6 months. Like, I don't even think that ended up in the book, but I just think it's the perfect little time frame for making social arrangements. A week is a little tight. I mean, you can do casual stuff within a weekly plan, especially if you have the close friends that live nearby that you hang out with all the time. Hey, what are you guys doing for brunch on Sunday or something? But when it's like, oh, let's meet for lunch on a random Wednesday or let's go out to a movie, like that monthly time frame is just so perfect because it gives you enough lead time for things that need more arrangement. You can plan toward the end of the month. For things that can be sooner, you can do it sooner. And it sounds like you also kind of use that time frame in that way.
Yeah, I do a lot of that social planning on the monthly level. And again, when I'm going through and looking at like the Slack and the Discord to see what I think I want to do, I'll put everything that I think I want to do onto my Google Calendar. And then this week I looked at it and I was like, I absolutely cannot do all of the things that I think I want to do, which is like I think a lot of people wish they had a social life where it's like, oh my gosh, there's no possible way I can do all of the things that I've been invited to or that I want to do or that I would enjoy doing. And so really choosing, because we had something. So I have a friend who's getting sworn into her new job tonight and I have book club. And so it was like, maybe I can make it to both of these, but that means I definitely can't do the thing I plan to do Tuesday night because it's just going to be too much. So on the weekly level, then I'm looking to see like, okay, was I overly ambitious about what I could actually do this week, given other work things or other obligations that have popped up?
That totally makes sense. And especially since a lot of what you're committing to, again, are these large group things, you can decide what to pull out from without messing anybody else up. So that's perfect.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been a pleasure and very inspiring. And I knew when you started talking about it during Best Laid Plans at Home that this needed a little bit of a wider audience because it really does sound so transformative. Any advice
Can I say one more thing really quickly?
Yeah.
This is kind of a summary of how I feel about my life right now. So my husband and I also, every week we do sauna and up at the reservoir near us. So it's like this beautiful setting. We do sauna and then cold plunge in the reservoir. And so it was a Sunday a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting in the sauna with my husband and some friends from yoga who sauna with us really regularly. So we're like chatting and sauning. And then I look out the window and there's somebody from my bike group and I wave and go say hi to her as she's about to start mountain biking by us. And then we went and plunged and came back in the sauna and I look out the other window and there's somebody from book club walking her dog and I'm like waving at her and saying hi. And I live in a town of like 160,000 people. So it's not like a tiny town, but I feel like I built so many connections through participating in groups. And so I think like if you really want to hypercharge your social life, join a group.
I love it. That is awesome. Well, that was kind of like the advice I was asking for. So that's beautiful. You answered my question without even knowing. So is there anywhere that if listeners have questions for you or like advice that they're looking for, I'll put the show notes up, obviously. So if they ask questions there, you can respond in the comments if you'd like. Is there anywhere like on socials or anywhere you want to be reached out to, or just via my website?
I'm really not on socials, but
I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
I don't have time for it because I'm too busy seeing people in real life.
Well, then the comment section of the show notes would be perfect. So hopefully if people have questions, then you can address them there. And that's always posted every Monday as the episodes come out. So you'll be able to find them there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on, September.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that was so much fun. I really enjoyed this episode. I do love featuring real people and their planner piece scenarios and any unique ways that planning has, enhanced or changed their lives. So this was a really fun story to share. I will be back next week with some more planning fun. As always, you can get the latest information via the show notes at my website, theshoebox.com, theshubox.com. And if you are not a subscriber to my newsletter, it just comes out once per month, but has highlights from the show. Often, I'll share other podcast appearances that I've done. And then any course information always comes out first via the newsletter. So if you want to be one of the first to receive that info, make sure you are signed up. It's theshoebox.com/newsletter. All right, I'll be back in your feed next Monday. I hope that everyone is having as good as a week as you are able, and keep the questions coming. I appreciate every one of you. See you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.